Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ.com live recap of AEW Dynamite for January the 5th, 2022. This was a very eventful edition of Dynamite, the first Dynamite on TBS, a historical night for sure. Shout out to everybody watching this. I appreciate your viewership and support. And if you are watching this on Facebook or Twitter, feel free to head over to youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. You can leave your comments in the chat room, and I will be putting some of them up on the screen. DJW already sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, noteworthy show tonight, Aaron, bud. Lots to talk about. Absolutely. A lot going on, not just in AEW, but WWE as well. It has been a very busy week. And as Darren G says, share this on social media, No DQ Galaxy. Yes, please do share this video. And remember, say yes to No DQ. All right. We kicked off with a big match. We kicked off with the AEW Championship match. We had Hangman Adam Page defending his title against Bryan Danielson, a rematch from their 60-minute draw at Winter is Coming. You had the three judges. It turns out that Max Caster was trolling people when he said he was a judge. Thankfully, he was not a judge. We had Paul White, No More BS, as one of the judges. We had Mark Henry and ECW legend Jerry effin Lynn. Let's talk about this match. You had Bryan doing the stalling like he did in the first match. He was doing the jumping jacks. He kept rolling to the outside of the ring. Adam Page went for the moonsault early, but Bryan was able to powerbomb Page on the apron. And then actually it was Page that powerbombed Bryan on the apron, excuse me. You had Page going for the buckshot lariat, but Bryan escaped to the outside again. Page went for a dive, but Bryan sidestepped him and Page crashed into the barricade. Several minutes later, Bryan sent Page headfirst into the steel steps, and you had Page busted open just like their first match. Adam Page wearing the crimson mask, and they were back in the ring. Page started headbutting Daniel Bryan, and at first it looked like maybe Bryan got some of Page's blood on his head, but as it turned out, Bryan was busted open as well, and I mean, he was gushing blood. Bryan Danielson was bleeding all over the place. Crowd was loving this. Page started doing some jumping jacks since Bryan was doing it earlier. Page did hit his moonsault off the top to the outside right around the 20-minute mark. Crowd was chanting, "This is awesome." He hit the Deadeye on the floor, and then he went for the buckshot again, but Bryan was just between the Deadeye and the blood. He collapsed. However, maybe Bryan was playing possum a little bit. Bryan ended up with a cradle, but Page kicked out of that, and then Bryan got the label lock on. Page managed to escape this, and at this point, I figured this was not going to go the 60 minutes because they were doing all of their big moves here about 25 minutes into the match. Page went for another buckshot lariat, but he missed. Bryan hit the running knee. 1-2 kick out. Page kicked out of the running knee. And then they started trading headbutts back and forth. And Bryan started kicking in the head of Page, but Page was able to recover. And he got the upper hand. He pulled down the elbow pad. And finally, he successfully hit the buckshot lariat, 1, 2, 3, to retain the AEW championship. And I love Bryan's sell job of the buckshot lariat. Great job. Bryan did fantastic in this match. This was a fantastic match. I liked it better than the Iron Man match, and this was what I was expecting from the first match. I was expecting them to go 20 to 30 minutes with Paige getting the clean win, and that's exactly what happened here. Perfect. I mean, I really have nothing bad to say about this match. This was a pay-per-view quality match, fantastic match, one of the best title matches in AEW history. Absolutely worth checking out. DJW sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, DJ. Says, honestly, Aaron, I was disappointed with the outcome of the match. I really wanted Danielson to win the title here, but his time will come, I suppose. Well, you have to keep in mind that Paige is their homegrown guy, and they're trying to establish him as the face of the company. So I know people are like, well, Paige should not be the champion. Bryan should be the champion. You got to give the homegrown guy a chance to succeed on top. And hey, 6 months down the line, it might not work out, but you have to go with it. You have to see where it takes you and where Adam Page can take the company. Maybe it doesn't work out, but you don't know until you try. Bryan did the absolute right thing for business, put over the guy who's the current flagship bearer of the company. But yeah, there are some negative comments about Page. City by the Bay says AEW has at least 10 guys he would rather see as world champion. And Gary Joe was against the idea of it being the opener, but he thought the storytelling was fantastic. And I like it being the opener because it makes people think, well, this might be going 60 minutes again. And they did not this time. If the match started at, say, 9:30, I think people would have realized, well, this ain't going an hour unless TBS is giving them extra time, which is always a possibility that could happen one of these days. But I think people would have figured, okay, it's not going the hour. I get it. I get why they started it off. And Joey says this is an early match of the year contender. I agree. Curtis Butler thinks that the first match was better. I respectfully disagree. This was more my kind of match. And I like the finish and everything. To me, I felt like my time was not wasted. So this match was my personal preference, but hey, whatever floats your boat. All right, let's move on here. We had our second match of the evening. And again, if you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter, feel free to head over to youtube.com/AaronRift, no DQ. Join our live chat. I put up some of the comments as you've seen, and I will be happy to put up comments from anybody that leaves a comment in the chat room. Give me your thoughts as we go through the show. Joey Perez thinks Moxley is next for Hangman. That is certainly a possibility, and Jon Moxley has been booked for an independent show later this month, which I would presume means that his return to AEW is imminent. Anytime now, he'll be back in the fold. We had Captain Shawn Dean versus MJF. Captain Shawn Dean has been working behind the scenes in AEW, and he actually commented on the whole diversity debate over the weekend with Tony Khan and Big Swole. Shawn Dean came to the defense of the company, and here he was on Dynamite against MJF. DJW sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, I was still curious what the judges' score was. Do they ever disclose that stuff if the match doesn't go to a draw? I feel bad for them because they're taking all the notes. Actually, no, I'm not feeling bad for them. So anyways, before this match really got going, the bell rang, and then CM Punk ran down, and MJF quickly escaped the ring. CM Punk stood there in the ring, and then all of a sudden hit the GTS on Captain Shawn Dean. The crowd was confused at first, not knowing what to make of this. Did CM Punk just turn heel? But as it turns out, it was CM Punk screwing over MJF, because the winner of this match by a disqualification was Captain Shawn Dean. And because they reset the win-loss records for the new year, MJF is technically 0-1, courtesy of CM Punk. I thought this was great. I love this angle that they did. Really fun. And then we got more. MJF was furious. He got on the mic. He called CM Punk a little bitch. Actually, it was CM Punk that called MJF a little bitch. My bad. CM Punk called him a little bitch, said that it will keep happening. MJF responded by saying that everything CM Punk says is fake. MJF said that without him, CM Punk is nothing. And Tony Schiavone said on commentary, and I quote, "I call bullshit on that one." MJF continued his promo. He said that CM Punk sold Tony Khan and the fans a bunch of a bill of goods, basically, is what he said. And he once again said CM Punk was PG Punk, and the crowd was getting behind MJF here. I mean, it is New Jersey, kind of close to Long Island. Newark is not that far away, so maybe you did have some MJF fans in attendance for this. Crowd, some of them were chanting PG Punk. And then it got really interesting. It got to the point where the people that complain about these segments, they rush right in to give their thoughts. Kayfabe Candy Ass is here. How's it going? He says, when the commentators swear it makes it less cool, save the shits for the top guys. Well, as Larry David once said, you don't need two fucks. So maybe you don't need two shits. And when everybody says shit, kind of waters it down a little bit. Anyways, back to the promo. Here's where it got really intense. They were bringing up Roddy Piper. MJF mentioned Roddy Piper, of course, several weeks ago. The line was used about CM Punk thinking he's Roddy Piper in Portland. And MJF said that the difference between PG Punk and Roddy Piper was that Piper was talented enough to main event WrestleMania. Yes, a WrestleMania reference to get that heel heat. Although Bryan Danielson already did it. Clearly, it's the go-to to get the heat. And the crowd kind of popped for it, though. Maybe they think there's a little bit of truth in it, perhaps. And MJF said if he's not shown the respect, maybe one day he'll main event a Mania too. This was, of course, a little reference to MJF's contract being up in a few years and possibly going to WWE. And CM Punk was like, all he's trying to do is kick MJF's ass, and MJF just keeps talking. And CM Punk basically said, go to WWE. CM Punk was like, you can go to WWE. You can main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza. And CM Punk said he'll be waiting right there when MJF comes back to AEW. So yeah, that was kind of funny. The crowd definitely popped for that line, the 2-for-1 tickets for WrestleMania. Of course, you know, they're going to put 70, 80,000 people in a stadium, 2-for-1 tickets, but AEW has yet to do that. Just saying. It was a funny line, though. I definitely got a kick out of it. Curtis Butler said these promo offs are starting to get a bit stale. And like I said, you're going to have the people out there that are like, oh, they reference WWE again. And, you know, they do it because it pops their audience, and they know the people that don't like AEW will talk about it, and they'll give AEW some free publicity. So they know exactly what they're doing here. Gary Joe says this was absolutely incredible. MJF is just amazing. I'm with you on that. I love the segment. And then MJF said next week, CM Punk will get a match against Wardlow. And then Punk said that one thing that him and Roddy Piper did have in common was that they would fight anyone. And he said eventually MJF will run out of people to hide behind. And one day CM Punk said he will put MJF to sleep. I love the segment. I know it has its critics. These segments tend to have people complaining, but it was fun. And when I'm watching a TV show, I like to have fun. I like to be entertained. And I was entertained by this. Dwayne Atkinson with a $2 super chat says, could AEW sell out a stadium right now? Maybe it's Chicago, a big enough show, a super card in a city like Chicago or New York. I certainly think it's a possibility. If they went to the United Kingdom, I think that could be a possibility that they could sell out of a very large building, maybe 50, 60,000 people. I think it's possible. I certainly think they will someday. Moving on here, we had Chris Jericho come to the ring for a promo, and he talked about the first episode of Dynamite on TBS. He brought up how his last appearance on TBS was back on an episode of WCW Thunder back in 1999. He said that he did not attack 2.0 last week to help Eddie Kingston. He did it because he wants a piece of those 2.0 dipshits. Again, we're going to that shit well again, which AEW tends to do. They love to say the word, but like Larry David said, you don't need two fucks. Anyways, we had 2.0 arrive. They came into the ring. Jericho made a South Park reference. Actually, maybe Jericho's a fan of that shit episode of South Park where they said shit like 100 times in one episode. Maybe that's just Jericho's favorite South Park episode, and he's always got to reference that. He called 2.0 Terrence and Phillip and said one of them is Squarehead and the other is Pinhead. He got the crowd to chant it. This was a little cringy. Not Jericho's best insults, in my opinion. He then grabbed his bat. You had Daniel Garcia get in the ring, and it was a 3-on-1 attack until Eddie Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz made the save. And it was announced for Rampage that Eddie Kingston, Santana, Ortiz will team up against 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. That's going to happen on Rampage. My friend Oofman Entertainment just sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. He says, hey, Aaron, currently at the Prudential Center watching Rampage. Want to shout out my wife. We are celebrating our 3-year anniversary today with AEW. She digs No DQ as well. Well, tell your wife I said happy anniversary. I hope you guys are having a great time at Rampage, and I hope you enjoyed AEW. I presume that you did enjoy Dynamite and you're enjoying Rampage as well. Have fun with the rest of the show. Hope to see you again soon. And like I said, say yes to No DQ. Moving on here, we had footage of Jake Atlas, who appeared on AEW Dark, and he is officially all elite now. We had Adam Cole backstage with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, the Undisputed Era, and Adam Cole said he knew Kyle O'Reilly's kick from last week was an accident, and he challenged Jake Atlas to a match on Rampage. And he said he's gonna give Atlas a one-way ticket back to Orlando. I thought Jake Atlas was released. He did not quit, right? So that doesn't even really make sense because he was let go. So, he can't really go back to Orlando, can he? Anyways, another reference to WWE. I'm sure some people will comment on that. And some criticism of the Chris Jericho show and his segment with 2.0. It wasn't his best work. I will say that much. We had Wardlow up against a guy whose name I missed, but it's basically what we've seen the past several weeks. You had Wardlow destroy this guy. Before the match even started, Shawn Spears attacked this guy, gave him the DVD, and then Wardlow hit the power bombs, the 5 power bombs to beat this guy. Andrew W. says, no mention of the shoe polish in Jericho's hair, LOL. I guess I didn't pick up on it. I really tend not to pay that much attention to Jericho's hair. It's nice hair for a guy his age. I wish I had Jericho's hair here at 39, and Jericho's past 50 now. Kayfabe Candy S says he wishes Jericho would do more of the serious New Japan type stuff he did a few years ago. The cringe, ironic, bad comedy is no good. Well, there you go. So, yeah, definitely some criticism for that Jericho segment. City by the Bay says, one of my favorite segments of the show. Wardlow looked great. Star potential. Yeah, but will it continue next week? He's got that match with CM Punk. Will Wardlow somehow pull off a victory? Maybe MJF causes a DQ or something. I guess we'll have to see. We then had our TBS title championship match to crown the very first champion. Jade Cargill versus Ruby Soho. Ruby had her jacket that said, God save that bitch. Of course, Jade Cargill calls herself that bitch. Ruby was selling her shoulder. She had her shoulder taped up a little bit. A couple negatives of this match. They had some outside interference. Mercedes Martinez coming down. Thunder Rosa attacked her, ran her off, and smart Mark Sterling got on the apron. He got booted out. I don't think he really needed the interference to crown your first champion. You could have kept everybody in the back. And match was fine. Did not blow me away. It wasn't great or anything. It was okay. My other issue with it, they showed Jade Cargill's daughter before the match got started. And to me, that was a dead giveaway of the finish. I don't think they're going to have Jade Cargill's young daughter, I mean, she's very young, sitting there at ringside if Jade's not winning the title. I kind of think it was a mistake to show the daughter beforehand. Like, show her afterwards. But when you show her beforehand, you kind of telegraph to everybody that there's going to be a title change. So, yeah, Jade Cargill got the win. She hit this top rope avalanche jaded to win the title. And who knows if she was the planned winner of this match, because this weekend there was some controversy. Big Swole talked about the lack of diversity in AEW. Tony Khan basically defended his company and said that her contract was not renewed because she wasn't good enough. People were not happy with that comment. It was a bad tweet from Tony Khan, that's for sure. And now Jade Cargill's the champ. So there you have it. Jade Cargill, your first TBS champion. And happy for her. Happy she gets the opportunity. And Ruby Soho looks like she might be going back into the AEW women's title picture, because afterwards, Tony Schiavone attempted to interview her backstage. Britt Baker confronted her, and Britt Baker made fun of her for losing championship matches twice now. And Ruby said that Britt only wins matches because she has people interfering. And Britt Baker ended up attacking Ruby Soho, and you had Riho make the save. You know, you had the three ladies with Britt Baker, and then Ruby Soho was taken down. Riho came in. This all happened in the backstage area. So yeah, we got Riho versus Britt Baker at the Battle of the Belts, which is this Saturday. And I will be recapping that. I will be back here Saturday night again for another live stream. It's been a busy week for sure. That'll be an interesting match. Curtis Butler says that backstage is the most dangerous place in wrestling. Indeed it is. DJW with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, DJW. Said, now I feel the exact opposite of this outcome. I know a lot of fans expected Soho to win the title here, but this was the right decision. Jade walks, looks, and talks like a champion. Goldberg style run for Jade all effing day. Yeah, I'm cool with it too. I think that Ruby did not need the title. I think Jade needed the win more. And again, you're trying to build homegrown talent. Ruby Soho, former WWE star. You really want to start pushing your homegrown guys and putting them at the forefront. What AEW doesn't need is a reputation of being a company that just pushes former WWE guys. So you got to have some of these people putting over the homegrown guys. Bryan Danielson putting over Adam Page. Ruby Soho putting over Jade Cargill. That's ultimately what you need to do. And it may or may not work out long term, but you have to go with it. You have to build up your homegrown stars. TNA, one of their big problems was when push came to shove, the homegrown guys got the short end of the stick. They got the raw end of the deal. And they were seen as inferior to the former WWE guys in the big moments. I think AEW made the right decisions with the match outcomes on this show. And we're still not done yet. We had a sit-down interview with Jim Ross and Serena Deeb, and she basically vented about how she paid the dues in the women's locker room, and she takes what she wants. She demanded a match against Hikaru Shida, and it was set up. It will take place on next week's AEW Dynamite. We then had Malachi Black one-on-one with Brian Pillman Jr. Pillman had Julia Hart with him. She was wearing an eye patch from the Mist courtesy of Malachi Black. And we had this match here, which was pretty much what you would expect. Pillman got the upper hand for a little bit. He did get some offense on Malachi Black. And then he went for the air Pillman. He got up on the ropes, the springboard, but then he fell. And it looked like a botch to me, but I mean, they went right to the finish. So if it was a botch, it was a very good save because Malachi Black immediately hit the Black Mass and picked up the victory. So they could say, rookie mistake, he tripped. Kind of like with Braun Breaker, where he tripped and, they made that part of the storyline that it was a rookie mistake. Malachi Black gets the win. No surprise here. And then after the match, he went back into the ring, acted like he was going to attack Julia Hart, who was checking on Pillman's condition. We then had the Lucha Brothers, the champs, run down to the ring. Lights went out, and when they came back on, Malachi Black was on the stage, and the Lucha Brothers were in the ring. Kind of a weird segment here. A lot of people thought we were going to see Brody King, who has teamed up with Malachi Black on the independent scene. A lot of people were thinking he was going to show up. That did not happen. But he did trend on Twitter with people thinking it was going to happen. And as Dwayne Atkinson said, he thought Black was going to introduce the first member of the House of Black. And City by the Sea says it reminded of the random ass blackout during the main event. We then had our main event, and for some reason the Lucha Brothers went to the back and then came back to the ring. You would think they would have just stayed in the ring. They're like, okay, we're here. We got our match. Let's just chill here. But they went to the back and then came back out again. I guess they got to have their music and everything. But to me, that's a waste of energy. You should just stay in the ring and preserve your energy instead of walking to the back, coming back out again. But I guess when you got the egos, you got to have your big entrance, right? So anyways, Lucha Brothers defending their tag team titles against the Jurassic Express. The Express had Christian Cage. I guess Christian has replaced Marco Stunt as the third member or the manager of the team, which I'm all for. I mean, Marco Stunt, I'm sure he's a nice guy and all, but kind of felt out of place. A guy that small, he's basically there to take bumps. I kind of like Christian being with them because it gives the Jurassic Express a little bit of a rub, kind of like with Sting and Darby Allin, I think. DJW with a $2 super chat says, Malachi Black, best entrance in pro wrestling. It's definitely a memorable entrance, that's for sure. It's pretty cool with the horns and everything, and the screaming guy in the background. It's pretty intimidating. All right, so let's talk about the tag match. Great main event here with these guys. Lots of fast-paced action. You had Penta doing all sorts of crazy things. Jungle Boy and Rey Fenix doing stereo arm drags and all this crazy stuff off the ropes. I can't even describe it because it's so wild. And Luchasaurus eventually got the hot tag and was cleaning house. Then things got interesting. We had Alex, who is the manager of the Lucha Brothers. He pulled out a table because Penta and Phoenix could not get the job done. They were unable to score the victory, and I guess Alex was feeling a little bit of desperation, so he grabbed this table, and then Christian did his job and chased Alex away. We then had Luchasaurus off the apron, choke slamming Rey Fenix through this table, and it was a nasty landing for Rey Fenix. I looked back at the clip, and you can immediately see blood, and like his arm went limp, and you can see blood coming out of his arm, and he's like pointing to his arm, like to the trainer, something happened here. It looked really bad, and all I can say is I hope he's okay, but it did not look good. It looked like he got hurt pretty bad with that bump. So a lot of people were, unfortunately, this kind of took away from the ending of the show with everybody hoping that Phoenix was okay. Oh, and by the way, thank you, Arco, for pointing this out. I missed that. I missed the lights out moment. The lights went out towards the end of the match as Phoenix and Penta were on the verge of perhaps winning the match. The lights went out, and then they just came back on, and nobody was there. And the match continued. And yeah, Andrew W says his arm bent completely the opposite way. It was really rough. Anyways, the match continued, and Penta was trying to put away Jungle Boy. He was going for that pile driver, but then Jungle Boy reversed it into a roll-up and scored the 1-2-3 victory, giving the Jurassic Express the tag team titles. Big win for them, but again, kind of overshadowed by what happened with Rey Fenix. Marcus the Entertainer sent in a $2 super chat, says, MJF is the only pillar to not win a championship. Well, he does have that dynamite diamond ring, and patience. He will get there eventually. When he does win, it's going to be a big deal, I think. Yeah, best wishes to Rey Fenix. And I like what they did post-match. You had the Jurassic Express celebrating with Christian, and then you had pretty much every tag team come down to the ring. And we're not to the ring, to the staging area. All these teams were out there, and they were clapping, but they were also, making their presence known that they will be looking for a future title opportunity. You had Malachi Black in the crowd. You had Chris Jericho. And Jericho was weird because he was just sitting there, and then it looked like he noticed he was on camera, and he started clapping. That was kind of awkward. So, yeah, I did like the whole post-match thing. Match was really good. Very unfortunate about Rey Fenix, though. Nick Glavin sent in a $7 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Nick. I appreciate it. He says, I think they called an audible with having the titles change. I think Brody King was supposed to come, but changed that due to the injury. Well, the whole lights out thing happened before Phoenix went through the table. So I'm not sure about that. There was a rumor that Brody King was going to be on the show, and people were definitely thinking it was going to happen. You would think it will happen at some point, that he's going to be part of the House of Black. Pretty much everyone's expecting it at this point. And there was a report that he is going to be part of AEW. DJW with a $5 super chat. Thank you, DJ. I appreciate it. He says, surprising title change here a little. Despite injury, I suppose it was time for them to drop the titles. I do not expect a lengthy title run, however. I'm all for it because I feel like Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus especially, like they're in these high-profile matches, but kind of like Eddie Kingston, they would come up short in the big matches. So I was kind of hoping at some point they would get the win, just so they can win a big one for once and have an opportunity to have a run with titles. I'm fine with it. I think that it's definitely something that's been overdue for those guys, and I want to see both of them get a push in AEW. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dwayne. Says, was it me or was anybody kind of expecting a Christian heel turn at the end? I did see a few people on Twitter mentioning that, but I think Christian's best off with them, kind of being like what Darby Allin and Sting are, what Sting is to Darby Allin as like a mentor type of role. So I think that's what's best for Christian at this point. I like the pairing of Christian with the Jurassic Express. And I agree with Gary that they finally pulled the trigger on Jurassic Express. You can't keep having them lose title match after title match. Definitely agree with that, Gary Joe, 100%. All right, so, and as Curtis Butler points out too, you got a lot of teams that can face Jurassic Express now. You got FTR, you got Red Dragon, you got Private Party, you got the House of Black, and Jurassic Express, they are a full-fledged babyface team. Lucha Brothers, it seems like sometimes they're heels, sometimes they're faces. You're not really sure what's going on with them. They do get big pops all the time, but Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are 100% babyface characters. So you got those heel teams to go up against them. I think it was the right move. City by the Bay sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. Thank you guys for the super chats. Very, very much appreciated. He says, how do you think AEW does running shows on the West Coast? I think they can sell out LA area, but not sure about other markets. Depends where they run in LA, but I think there's a really good chance their first show in Greater Los Angeles will draw 10K. I think they can definitely pull that off. Bay Area, probably the 5,000-6,000. I think the first events, regardless, are going to draw really big numbers, especially LA. I'm not sure if they're going to run Seattle or Portland, but if they do, Seattle, they might draw a pretty big crowd. Seattle has Defy, which is a very entertaining indie promotion in the Seattle Pacific Northwest area. So I think they will do well the first go-arounds, especially in LA. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat, says, I'm waiting for the Briscoes to debut. I can't honestly say that I am, but I know a lot of fans would like to see them get an opportunity in AEW. And there's another heel team. They're heels, right? I'm not even sure. I don't follow Ring of Honor, but I get a heel vibe from them. So I'm going to assume that they're heels, and they could also challenge Jurassic Express. I know FTR was setting up an angle with them, so maybe they're faces. I don't even know at this point. Literally, the only thing I know about those guys is that years ago they made some, homophobic comments, or one of them did. I don't even remember exactly what they said, but they did generate some controversy several years ago. And that's really all I know about them. that they got some heat from Twitter several years ago. Marcus the Entertainer sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Marcus. I appreciate it. Tony Khan stated that they would be touring the West Coast, building to Double or Nothing, definitely doing Seattle with Bryan. I mean, that would make sense. I would definitely build up Daniel Bryan. I keep calling him that. Bryan Danielson's homecoming. I would definitely build that up for their first Seattle show. Makes absolute sense to put Bryan in a high-profile match. I wonder if his heel run is going to be over now. I wonder if he's going to be done with the little heel run, kind of like Shawn Michaels with Hulk Hogan in 2005. Now that the Page feud is over, Bryan goes back to being a babyface. I think he probably will. Sooner than later, he'll be back to the babyface role, especially if they're going to Seattle soon, which, yeah, Tony Khan, he said it several months ago, but he did confirm it again in a new interview that AEW is planning a West Coast tour in May around the time of Double or Nothing. And appreciate this comment. City by the Bay says, keep up the great work. Best wrestling channel on YouTube. I appreciate that very much. Calvin Bowman says, when will Kenny Omega return? That's a good question. I really haven't heard much about the severity of his injuries, just that he was dealing with a lot of various nagging injuries. And, you know, he was going hard for several years, going back to New Japan and then right into AEW. So, you know, I think the guy deserves a bit of a break. You know, you got other people right now that are getting the spotlight, and, you know, there's no rush. But I do think we'll see him back later this year. And they did set up a feud for Adam Cole when he does come back. And, you know, they can do the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus the Undisputed Era. You know, they got some big matches, but again, no rush. Let Omega heal up his body and give him the time that he needs to rest up and come back with his batteries recharged. So as far as this show goes, excellent show. I mean, definitely one of the better Dynamites in the history of the show. They hit a home run for their debut on TBS. You know, other than the Phoenix injury and a few weak points, like with the Jericho promo. Overall, a fantastic show. Very entertaining 2 hours, and I would say it's a must watch. As far as my recommendation goes, I think it's definitely worth your time. Even if you're not an AEW fan, if you're going to watch an AEW show, this would be a good first one to watch. And if it's not your cup of tea, then you're probably not going to be an AEW fan. But if there was an AEW show to check out, if you're on the fence about it, I think that this would be one to watch and see if you can get into AEW or not. And if you know somebody who doesn't watch wrestling, you're trying to get them to become a fan, I think this would be a good choice for them to watch. Axel sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Axel. I appreciate it. He says, hey, Aaron, this is off topic, but do you think now that NXT is rebranding itself, could you see them introducing new title designs? Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. They've been doing all these other changes. They've been cutting people. You know, this news about William Regal, Road Dogg, a lot of people behind the scenes, part of Triple H's NXT, are now gone from the company. Yeah, it's a new era for sure. 2.0, it is full speed ahead. You had Braun Breaker kicking the X, the symbolic end of the black and gold brand. Yeah, I would not be shocked if they changed up the titles and gave them new designs. And we do have a merger of the North American and Cruiserweight title. I suspect that title at least will get a new design, being a merged championship. And plus, you get to sell more titles. You know, WWE, if you say, hey, people are marks, they'll buy the titles. That's all the more reason for them to make new titles to sell more championship replicas. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. And If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. Give it a like on YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't already. And like I tell everyone else, say yes to no DQ. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. And I will see you all next time.